Did you know that a simple box of Lego bricks can reveal a complex story about how we understand and represent history? Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of rare and discontinued Lego sets, specifically looking at how they intersect with African history. Or, perhaps more accurately, how they often don't. We'll explore official Lego releases that touch on African geography, archaeology, and wildlife, examine the collector's market for these now scarce sets, and confront the bigger question of why African historical subjects are so often absent from mainstream Lego history. This absence is significant in itself, a cultural statement made not through what's present, but what's missing. Lego's adventurous team, particularly the Orient Expedition sub-team from the late 90s and early 2000s, offers an interesting starting point. While sets like Mates of the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull focused on other regions, this wave of sets included some that touched upon adventure tropes in Africa-like settings. Now, it's important to note a factual caution here. Lego's early adventure line referenced ancient ruins and exploration more than specific African kingdoms. The sets drew on non-European locales, but most avoided direct naming of African states or historical polities. The sets favored a generic sense of adventure over pinpointing exact cultural connections. Then we have Lego's wildlife and safari-related sets. These sets, largely from the late 1980s and early 1990s under the Lego Town banner, are among the clearest African reference sets Lego has ever made. Lego produced multiple safari and animal sets featuring iconic African wildlife, elephants, lions, giraffes, zebras, all complete with jeeps and rangers. Sets like the African Safari set are relatively straightforward. Various animal parks and zoo-related sets appeared over the years, many now retired. These sets are considered rare on the secondary market because animals were only produced in limited colorways or sets. It's important to recognize that Africa was often represented through wildlife imagery, not through people, states, technology, or historical achievements. What about Egypt? Lego's Pharaoh's Quest team, released in 2011, offers some of the most visually African location-based Lego sets ever made. Sets like Cursed Cobra Statue, Rise of the Sphinx, Golden Staff Guardians, and Flying Mummy Attack are visually evocative of ancient Egypt. However, these sets depict mythicized ancient Egypt, steeped in fantasy and adventure, rather than the broader sweep of African history. They focus on archaeology and fantasy action, not necessarily the nuances of ancient Egyptian society or its connection to the rest of the continent. Lego has occasionally released sets connected to heritage, travel, and world architecture. The Lego Architecture series featured the Great Pyramid of Giza. While the Taj Mahal isn't African, it often appears in World Heritage searches and is part of the broader pattern of civilizational monuments being turned into display models. When Africa appears in Lego's adult line heritage products, it is usually through one monument at a time, especially Egypt. So, what happens when official Lego sets fall short? This is where the world of custom creations, known as MOCs, or my own creations, comes in. Artists and collectors are increasingly using Lego to depict aspects of African history rarely seen in official sets. These include recreations of the ancient Ghana Empire, the Mali Empire, Great Zimbabwe, Ethiopian Christian architecture, colonial era resistance movements, and even Afrofuturist reconstructions of lost cities. Ika Nimoko, a Ghanaian Canadian artist, is a prime example. His large-scale black Lego sculptures reimagine African history and future possibilities, offering a powerful counter-narrative to the limited scope of official Lego sets. The market for rare and discontinued African history Lego is partly being filled by MOCs and art installations rather than official sets. Lego has historically depicted Africa more as terrain than as civilization. In many older sets, Africa appears as a safari landscape, desert ruins, pyramids, wildlife reserve, or expedition backdrop. The continent is visually present, but African societies are usually not centered. The people, cultures, and achievements of African civilizations are often relegated to the background, if they appear at all. The biggest Africa-related LEGO blind spot isn't Egypt, it's sub-Saharan history. While ancient Egypt gets some representation, the larger omission is the lack of sets depicting the Ghana Empire, the Mali Empire, the Songhai Empire, Great Zimbabwe, the Benin Kingdom, the Congo Kingdom, Aksum and Ethiopia, the Swahili city-states, Zulu and other southern African states, and anti-colonial liberation struggles. These are either absent or extremely underrepresented in official LEGO sets. Ironically, rare LEGO animals are often more African than rare LEGO history sets. Collectors often search for retired elephant molds, giraffe figures, zebra prints, lion variants, and crocodile pieces. These parts can become valuable because they were used in relatively few sets. But it's important to remember that the rarity is often in the animal mold or printed element, not in a set explicitly about African history. When we talk about rare and discontinued, it can mean two different things in the LEGO collecting world. Rarity may refer to a set with a small production run or short shelf life. It could also refer to part rarity, meaning a specific molded element, printed tile, or minifigure is hard to find. Regional rarity refers to a set sold only in certain countries. And, of course, condition rarity refers to a sealed box, complete instructions, or mint figures. Many African-related LEGO items are not rare because they were underproduced, they are rare because they were retired long ago and survived in fewer complete copies. Older adventure sets frequently reflected the logic of explorers, lost tombs, exotic ruins, treasure hunting, anonymous locals, and dangerous jungles or deserts. This mirrors older Western adventure media more than actual African history, perpetuating stereotypes and reinforcing colonial power dynamics. LEGO helps define what children and collectors think historical civilization looks like. Because LEGO is a global brand, its choices matter. If LEGO repeatedly highlights ancient Rome, medieval Europe, Vikings, Egyptian monuments, and Japanese castles, but rarely African kingdoms, then it quietly shapes public imagination. This isn't about blaming LEGO, but about understanding the subtle ways in which cultural narratives are constructed and reinforced. The African history gap is a form of cultural representation imbalance. The issue is not just missing toys. It is about whose past is considered collectible, whose monuments are considered iconic, whose stories are seen as universal, and which regions are reduced to wildlife or archaeology. That imbalance has real educational and cultural effects, shaping how children and adults perceive the world. Retired LEGO sets become miniature archives. Once discontinued, LEGO sets often become collector artifacts, museum objects, online documentation subjects, and building inspiration for artists. For Africa-related imagery, these retired sets can act like a fragile archive of how the continent was imagined in mainstream toy culture. They provide a glimpse into the past, reflecting the biases and perspectives of the time they were created. African-themed MOCs and art projects are correcting the record. Contemporary builders and artists are using LEGO to reconstruct lost African cities, visualize pre-colonial urbanism, challenge the "Africa had no monumental history" stereotype, and create Afrofuturist narratives that link past and future. This is significant because it turns LEGO from a passive consumer product into a medium of historical reclamation, allowing individuals to actively participate in shaping the narrative. Finally, we can even see connections to modern African tourism and heritage. Modern African tourism sites can connect well to LEGO-style reconstruction. The Great Zimbabwe ruins, for example, could be reimagined in LEGO form, providing a tangible and engaging way to learn about its history and significance. Even the Basilica of Our Lady of Peace in Yamoussoukro, while not ancient, is often cited in architecture discussions and could inspire unique LEGO creations. What untold stories are waiting to be built?